So about 4 years ago, my husband and I were separated for about 8 months. And during that time, we got separated because I wasn't seeing any changed behaviors. And upon signing some papers to actually get a divorce, I wanted to have one last question with him, or one last conversation just to get more clarity and understanding. And that actually led to us reconciling. But within the time that I had asked him for a divorce and signing the papers, it was about 6 weeks, he had developed feelings for someone else, a coworker. And I let him know that if we were going to move forward, I wasn't comfortable with him being friends with this person. So after some conversations, we decided to move forward with our marriage. And now that we've been married for almost 12 years, I just found out that he's still following on her on social media, and, we'll chat with her every now and again. And so I'm just feeling a little distrust, and I'm wondering how to move forward in my marriage when he doesn't see that as a problem.
Why'd you choose to separate at the beginning?
Well, we were first married for 7 years, and during that time, he didn't have a full-time job ever, and I really supported us through that while he was chasing his dreams and his career. And so for a little bit, I was like, okay, I signed up for this, for helping him kind of get to where he wants to be, but I didn't sign up for 7 years of being the sole provider. And so there wasn't really any changed behavior whenever I would ask him about that. And I decided, we decided, I guess, but really I prompted it. I said, I think we need to separate so you can understand the full responsibility of being an adult, paying your own bills, making your own money, and understand what I'm going through. And so we were still, considering ourselves married. We still had date night and all that, but just not living in the same place.
What was his job? What was he trying to do?
Be a full-time musician.
Okay. So he was out there grinding it. Was he laying around all day? Was he trying to book shows?
He was at home practicing and some shows every now and again.
Okay. When you had the conversation with him about being friends with somebody, how'd that go?
Well, it was basically more than a friendship. So the context there is he was really upset at me after I said I wanted to continue the marriage because he felt like he had already processed through the grief of that and then allowed himself to develop feelings for this coworker. And so that was definitely a tension that we had to navigate. And he just didn't feel like it was a problem because there wasn't actually a relationship happening between them.
So I guess the word that keeps coming to mind is clarity. Or
Right.
Something we say around the office all the time, and I've said to people for years, is clear is kind. And so tell me if I'm wrong here, but there's a difference in saying, I'm signing up to follow your dreams. I'm increasingly frustrated that you're not making any money or you're not moving the family along in a way that I want to. So back then, was there ever a conversation about, I know you have this dream, I know you want to do this. At the end of every month, for us, we need you to bring in this many dollars? Or was it always... Okay, tell me about that.
So there were definitely conversations around that. And, I said, this is just the lay of the land. This is what has happened thus far. And I'm not upset at that because there is some amount of investment that needs to go into this. But I need your help. This is the amount of money we need you to bring in. And, he's really never had a full-time job at that point. And so it was difficult for him to understand what that meant and how he could do it. And so he would get small jobs every year and again, and it wasn't really ever enough. And it wasn't actually a behavior change. And so I mean, that was the reason why we got separated. And when we did, that actually did work. He got a job, found roommates, paid his own bills, and was responsible for all of that. So because of that behavior change and learning about it at the end of it, we decided to move forward.
And so where are you now?
Well, now since then I have asked him, recently finding out that he still is in contact with her. I expressed, I feel really uncomfortable with this because she messaged you after you told her we were working on our marriage, something like you deserve, to be with someone who treats you better or something like that.
Okay, that's super fair. Then that means, yes, she's not getting the message, and that deserves a total cutoff. Not talking to you, end of communication. Totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
And so how can I help you?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering how I move forward with this, or what's the conversation I can have with him to help him understand the severity of it.
Well, I mean, it sounds like the language you're using, it sounds like you're way more his mother than his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And he's shown the ability to, when he's on his own, to go do his own thing. But there's something about y'all's dynamic that he immediately falls into yes, ma'am, or ignoring you like teenage boys do with their moms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm wondering is one of two things. One is he has maybe what I would call it an emotional, I won't call it romantic because that's kind of just silly, an emotional connection with somebody else that he doesn't have with you because you're his mom. And he likes the idea of a girlfriend. That's one idea. Another idea is he's just a complete and utter man-child liar. Or the third thing is a weird combination of both, which is you married a musician with dreams of both of y'all hitting it big, right? He hits it big, and then you get to go along for the ride, and that creates a cool life for y'all. And then you would say, hey, we need this dollar amount. You have to go make $650 this month. Like through any number of combination of things, shows, whatever, but you got to make this much money because this is how much it takes to run this house. And maybe he would play one show and work some odd jobs and come up with 500 of that or 600 of that. But for you, that finish line kept moving. And it was like, no, I don't mean get a part-time job to get that 650. I meant you need to get a real job. And you see what I'm saying? Like the bar just keeps moving and moving. I don't want you to be friends. Okay, I won't. I'm going to go sit down with her and say, I thought I was getting divorced. I was already starting to look over the fence and I'm not doing that anymore. This is over. And then she's like, cool, and reaches back out. Like, are you sure? And you get what I'm saying? And I'm just wondering if he is in a position, I'm not saying what he's doing is right. In fact, if he was on the phone right now, I would be all over him for still having contact with this person. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering if he is in a position where he can ever win with you. Or does the finish line keep moving and moving because you're just wholly unsatisfied with him as a guy that sounds like you don't respect him. And it's hard to be romantically involved with somebody that you do not respect. Are you a safe place for him to come home to?
I believe so.
And he can just drop down and tell you what's going on in his heart and his mind and with his music and with the songs and his writing and all. Like, you're a safe place for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Then have you sat down and said, I feel less loved and less safe when you're talking to this person? That's why.
Yes.
And he said, I don't really care how you feel or what you want?
He said, well, she's just a friend. I don't know what you want me to do.
Okay. Then what he's doing is he's saying, I'm choosing her over you. It's just that simple. Exactly.
He's choosing whatever friendship that is over my feelings. And I don't really know what next steps are.
I think you do know what the next steps are. They're just really challenging.
Okay.
Let's sit down and let's use I statements.
Okay.
And maybe you spend some time really getting to the bottom of what you are experiencing. and say the words.
Sure.
When you enter into that conversation with you, and then you, and then you, then he's going to play defense. I don't understand why you're being like this. I don't understand why that. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying there's a different path to get to where you really want to get to, which is, why is my husband, the guy that I'm trying to build something with, why is he getting emotional connection? Why is he getting his needs met with another woman? That makes me feel small and less than. Because then you start trying to defend yourself with, I make all this money. I have a job in the business world. I'm letting you go play music for a living. I'm right. And now we're into scorekeeping. Then we're getting into contempt. I am somehow better than you in this relationship. And so why are you doing this?
Well, I've definitely been there before and have worked through that. And so, yeah, I completely agree that there's a lot of things that I need to do on my side to maybe communicate that better. And I certainly have expressed it in that way. It makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
what's the thing beneath what's the thing beneath uncomfortable?
What's the thing? When I say that, what do I mean?
Your body makes you feel uncomfortable, but feelings are simply the lights on a dashboard of your car. Mm-hmm. What is that discomfort? What is it signaling to your body?
Yeah, that I'm not enough.
There you go. That's what he needs to hear. I feel like not enough. And I've tried to get your love by making a bunch of money. I've tried to get your love by letting you go do this stuff that I still think is kind of boyish and childish, but go be you. And I don't feel like I'm enough. And then maybe asking a hard question, do I make you feel like you're not enough? But that's the only way you're going to get to the true root of this issue. And if he says, I just can't talk to you about this stuff and I like her company more than yours, then you got a guy who is invested in another woman. You're going to have to deal with that reality, which might put you back at that table of, I don't want to be married to you then. Often, though, when people get to the underneath, the you make me feel uncomfortable, you're making me feel like this, instead of saying, I feel less than. That's almost always the place where the only true healing can happen is there. Because my hope is he's a guy who doesn't want to make his wife feel less than. My hope is he's a guy who has figured out I can't talk and be fully myself in my own home. And so I'm doing something that's wrong and unethical and not integrous by reaching out to other women to get that. But that's the true nature here. And that's the conversation it feels like y'all are avoiding. Maybe you haven't avoided that and you've actually said those things in the past. And if so, then you've got a hard decision to make about, you've got a husband who is emotionally invested in another woman and is having his needs met there. And that's emotional infidelity. And you're going to have to deal with that. And I can't tell you how to deal with that. Whether you leave that marriage, you make peace, and that's going to be your call to make. But I always want people to take that one last step and go one layer deeper and say, here's what my body's trying to get my attention about. I feel small and less than in my own house. I'm trying to love you and I'm not getting through. And I'll also say this to you and to everybody. Listen, it feels like when you come through a big monumental moment in a marriage, like you guys did, you were at the table to sign divorce papers and you walked away and you said, no, let's do this again. It feels like that will be the once and for all. That's the last time we'll ever come to a crossroads. And I guess what I want to pass along to everybody is marriage is full of multiple crossroads. And you can look at those one of two ways. You can look at crossroads that come up on multiple occasions as this is the last straw. One time it was about money. Now it's about I'm asking you to not follow somebody on Instagram. Now it's about you're yelling at our kids and I don't want you to yell. You can say strike three, you're out. I'm out of this thing. Or you can look at it this way. My wife said this once and I love it. She said, because of the hard stuff we've been through, I know there's nothing that we can't overcome. So when we come to these new crossroads and these new crossroads, it's a moment to exhale. Because we've been through hard stuff before, and so we can get through hard stuff again. All that's going to matter, though, is if both of you can get to the real root and say, here's where I am on this one. And hear me say, everybody, I think he's wrong. I think he's in the wrong. but there may be a context to his action, and that's what I want you to explore. Thanks for the call, sister. I really, really appreciate it. And if he ever wants to call, I'd love to talk to him too.